Dr. Marcus Vale walked slowly through his laboratory, his 4 blue arms moving with practiced precision as he prepared for another day of research. The morning light from Kethra Prime's twin suns cast long shadows across his workstation, where dozens of ancient fossil samples waited for analysis. Marcus had been the lead scientist at the Kethran Research Institute for over 20 years. His golden eyes had examined countless specimens from across their homeworld, but today felt different. The excavation team had brought him something unusual from the deepest archaeological site ever discovered on their planet. He picked up the first fossil with 2 of his hands while his other arms operated the scanning equipment. The bone fragment looked strange, almost alien compared to typical Kethran remains. Where Kethran bones were dense and heavy, designed to support their 4-armed bodies and thick blue scales, this specimen was light and delicate. "Computer, begin genetic analysis," Marcus said, placing the sample into the advanced scanner. The machine hummed to life, sending invisible beams through the ancient bone to extract any remaining genetic material. Marcus had always loved this part of his work. Each fossil told a story of the past, revealing secrets about how his people had evolved over millions of years. He expected to find another piece of the Kethran evolutionary puzzle, perhaps evidence of an earlier stage in their development. The results appeared on his holographic display, and Marcus stopped moving entirely. His 4 arms froze in place as he stared at the genetic readout. This was impossible. The DNA sequences showed patterns he had never seen before, markers that existed nowhere in the Kethran genetic database. He ran the analysis again, certain the machine had made an error. The results remained the same. This creature, whatever it was, shared no common ancestry with modern Kethrans. Yet somehow, buried in the deepest and oldest layer of their homeworld, it existed where no alien species should be found. Marcus picked up another fossil fragment, this one larger. As he examined it under the microscope, his confusion grew. The bone structure suggested a bipedal creature that walked on only 2 legs. The joint formations indicated a being with just 2 arms, not the 4 that every Kethran possessed. How is this possible? Marcus whispered to himself, his voice echoing in the empty laboratory. He spent the next several hours examining every piece of the collection. Each fossil told the same impossible story. These creatures were completely different from Kethrans, yet they had lived on Kethra Prime millions of years ago. Their bone density suggested they had evolved under different gravitational conditions. Their skull shape indicated a brain structure unlike any known species. As Marcus worked deeper into the analysis, he discovered something even more disturbing. While these ancient creatures showed no relationship to modern Kethrans, there were subtle genetic markers that seemed to connect them to Kethran DNA. It was as if these beings had somehow contributed to Kethran evolution without being direct ancestors. The laboratory door chimed, and Dr. Emma Ross entered. She was Marcus's research partner, her own blue scales gleaming under the bright lights. Her 4 arms carried additional fossil samples from the excavation site. "Marcus, you need to see what else we found," Emma said, setting down the new specimens. The dig team discovered an entire burial ground. Hundreds of these creatures. Marcus looked at the new fossils Emma had brought. They confirmed his worst fears. This wasn't an isolated discovery or a few random bones. An entire population of these mysterious beings had lived and died on Kethra Prime long before Kethrans existed. "Emma, look at these genetic results," Marcus said, sharing his holographic display with her. "These creatures aren't related to us, but somehow they are connected to our evolutionary history." Emma studied the data, her golden eyes widening as she understood the implications. "This suggests our understanding of Kethran evolution is completely wrong." Marcus nodded grimly. Every Kethran child learned in school that their people had evolved naturally on their homeworld over millions of years. Their 4 arms had developed to help them climb the tall crystal trees that covered their planet. Their blue scales protected them from the radiation of their twin suns. Their enhanced strength came from adapting to their world's heavy gravity. But these fossils suggested a different story entirely. If these strange bipedal creatures had existed on Kethra Prime first, what had happened to them? How had Kethrans come to exist on a world where they seemed to have no evolutionary ancestors? Marcus sealed the laboratory and activated the security protocols. "Emma, we can't let anyone else know about this until we understand what we're dealing with. If these results are accurate, they challenge everything we believe about our origins." As the day progressed, Marcus ran every test he could think of. He analyzed bone structure, genetic markers, and cellular composition. Each result confirmed what he feared most. These ancient beings were not Kethran ancestors, yet their presence on Kethra Prime coincided exactly with the beginning of Kethran evolutionary history. Standing alone in his laboratory as the twin suns set, Marcus stared at the fossil remains scattered across his workstation. In his hands, he held evidence that could rewrite the history of his entire species. But he also held questions that might shake the very foundation of everything Catharans believed about themselves. Tomorrow, he would begin the most important investigation of his career. He would discover the truth about these mysterious beings and their connection to his people, no matter where that truth might lead him. Dr. Marcus Vale sat in his laboratory every morning before dawn, working in complete secrecy. 3 weeks had passed since his shocking discovery, and each day brought new questions that kept him awake at night. The strange bipedal fossils lay arranged on his workstation like pieces of an impossible puzzle. Using his research credentials, Marcus accessed the archaeological databases from across the Catharan colonies. He searched for any mention of similar discoveries on other worlds. What he found made his 4 hands tremble as he typed. The mining colony on Thylos 7 had discovered identical fossils just 2 years ago. The report described them as evolutionary anomalies and recommended further study, but no follow-up research had been conducted. On Arcturus Station, construction workers had unearthed an entire skeleton of the same bipedal species while building new residential quarters. Marcus pulled up 17 different reports from 17 different worlds. Each described the same type of fossils. Each showed creatures with 2 arms, 2 legs, and bone structures completely unlike the species that currently lived on those planets. The Thylonian people were tall and thin with green skin. The Arcturians were short and stocky with thick gray hides. Yet all of them shared the same mysterious connection to these ancient bipedal beings. This cannot be coincidence, Marcus whispered to himself as he compared the genetic data from all 17 worlds. He spent days creating detailed charts and maps. The distribution pattern showed something impossible. These ancient creatures had existed on worlds separated by thousands of light years. No known species could have traveled such distances in prehistoric times. Yet somehow, these beings had been present on every major inhabited world in their sector of the galaxy. Marcus knew he needed access to older records, information that went back further than colonial databases. Using his senior researcher status, he applied for access to the Galactic Council archives. The request took 2 weeks to process, but eventually he received clearance to examine historical documents. The archives were located in a massive underground facility beneath the capital city. Marcus traveled there alone, telling no one about his research. The archival chambers stretched for miles underground, filled with data storage units containing millions of years of galactic history. An elderly Catharan librarian named Dr. William Chen guided Marcus to the restricted section. These records are very old, William explained as they walked through dimly lit corridors. Many files are incomplete or damaged. Some information was deliberately classified for security reasons. Marcus spent days searching through fragmentary records. Most documents from 50,000 years ago were corrupted or missing entirely. But scattered throughout the archives, he found references to a species called humans. The first mention appeared in a trade agreement dating back 48,000 years. It described humans as technologically advanced bipedal beings with significant spacefaring capabilities. Another document mentioned human colonies on multiple worlds and their reputation for adaptability. Marcus felt his heart racing as he read each fragment. These humans matched the physical description of the fossils he had discovered. 2 arms, 2 legs, the same bone density and skull structure. But according to the records, humans had been a thriving galactic civilization, not primitive creatures. A shipping manifest from 49,000 years ago listed human passengers being transported to various colony worlds. The destinations matched exactly with the planets where Marcus had found the mysterious fossils. His 4 hands shook as he realized the implications. The humans had not evolved separately on each world. They had been transported there. But why? And what had happened to their advanced civilization? Marcus found his answer in a heavily damaged military report. The document was mostly unreadable, but several phrases remained clear. Emergency evacuation protocols activated, population relocation in progress, and most disturbing of all, Project Genesis approved for implementation. He searched for any reference to Project Genesis but found nothing. The files had been completely purged from the archives. However, Marcus discovered something else that made his blood run cold. The timing of the human disappearance coincided exactly with the emergence of modern galactic civilization. 50,000 years ago, humans vanished from all records. 50,000 years ago, species like the Catharans, Thylonians, and Arcturians began appearing in the historical record. The correlation was too perfect to be accidental. Marcus returned to his laboratory with copies of everything he had found. Working through the night, he created a timeline that showed the impossible truth. An advanced human civilization had existed across multiple worlds. These humans had been systematically removed or relocated. Then, new species had appeared on those same worlds, each showing subtle genetic connections to the missing humans. As Marcus worked, he noticed something troubling. His computer system had begun logging his research activities automatically. Files he had not authorized were being created and transmitted to unknown destinations. Someone, or something, was monitoring his investigation. Emma Ross found Marcus in his laboratory the next morning, surrounded by printouts and data displays. "Marcus, you look terrible," she said, concern evident in her voice. "What have you been working on?" Marcus looked at his research partner and made a decision that would change both their lives. "Emma, I need to show you something that will challenge everything we believe about our people and our place in the galaxy." As he began explaining his discoveries, Marcus had no idea that ancient systems throughout the galactic network were awakening, preparing to protect secrets that had been hidden for 50,000 years. Dr. Marcus Vale worked alone in his laboratory, the twin sons of Kethra Prime casting eerie shadows through the windows. Emma had left hours ago, still struggling to understand the impossible evidence Marcus had shared with her. Now, in the quiet of the night, Marcus prepared for the most important experiment of his career. He had spent weeks developing new genetic reconstruction techniques, pushing his equipment beyond its normal capabilities. Tonight, he would attempt something that had never been done before. He would trace the complete genetic pathway from the ancient human fossils to modern Kethran DNA. Marcus placed a human fossil sample into his most advanced scanner, then added a sample of his own genetic material. The machine hummed with power as it began the complex analysis. Hours passed as the computer processed millions of genetic markers, searching for connections that should not exist. When the results appeared on his holographic display, Marcus stepped backward in shock. The genetic pathway was not just connected, it was deliberately engineered. The human DNA had been systematically modified through controlled mutations, enhanced with additional genetic material, and guided through an accelerated evolutionary process. "This is impossible," Marcus whispered, but the evidence was undeniable. Someone with incredible technological capability had taken human genetic material and transformed it into modern Kethran DNA. The process was not natural evolution. It was intelligent design on a scale beyond anything in recorded history. Marcus ran the same analysis using genetic samples from other species. The results were identical. Thylonian DNA showed the same engineered pathway from human origins. Arcturian genetics revealed the same controlled modifications. Every major species in the galaxy shared this common human foundation, each modified for different environments and purposes. The blue scales that protected Kethrans from radiation were human skin cells enhanced with crystalline proteins. The 4 arms that made Kethrans such skilled researchers were human limbs duplicated through genetic manipulation. Even their enhanced intelligence was human brain capacity expanded through careful genetic engineering. Marcus realized he was staring at evidence of the greatest crime in galactic history. The humans had not simply vanished. They had been kidnapped, experimented upon, and transformed into new species. Their original civilization had been completely erased, replaced by their own genetically modified descendants who had no memory of their true origins. As Marcus studied the genetic modifications more closely, he discovered something even more disturbing. The changes were not random adaptations. Each species had been designed for specific purposes. Kethrans with their enhanced intelligence and 4 arms were built for research and technology. Thylonians with their tall, thin bodies were designed for low-gravity mining operations. Arcturians with their thick hides and stocky builds were created for heavy industrial work. The humans had been turned into a slave workforce, genetically modified to serve specific functions, then scattered across the galaxy with false memories and manufactured histories. The entire galactic civilization was built on this foundation of engineered biology and erased history. Marcus sat down heavily in his chair, his 4 arms trembling as the full implications became clear. Every person he knew, every friend and colleague, was a descendant of kidnapped and modified humans. Their entire culture, their beliefs about their origins, their sense of identity, all of it was a lie constructed to hide the truth. He began searching through his genetic data for clues about who might have orchestrated such a massive undertaking. The engineering was too sophisticated for any known technology. The scale was beyond anything in recorded history. Whoever had done this possessed capabilities far beyond current galactic civilization. Deep within the modified genetic code, Marcus found something unexpected. Hidden markers that seemed to serve no biological purpose were embedded throughout the DNA of every species. At first, they appeared to be random sequences, but when Marcus analyzed them more carefully, he realized they were not random at all. They were coordinates. The genetic markers pointed to specific locations throughout the galaxy. Some coordinates led to empty space, others to uninhabited star systems. But when Marcus cross-referenced the locations with astronomical databases, he discovered that each coordinate marked the position of ancient monitoring stations that had been dormant for thousands of years. Someone had built a network of observation posts throughout the galaxy, then hidden the locations within the genetic code of their engineered species. The stations were designed to activate when certain genetic triggers were met, possibly when the modified humans discovered their true origins. Marcus realized his research might have already triggered these ancient systems. His genetic analysis, his database searches, his discovery of the truth, all of it might have been detected by monitoring systems he did not even know existed. As if responding to his thoughts, his computer terminal suddenly displayed an incoming transmission from an unknown source. The signal was coming from deep space, far beyond the borders of known civilization. Warning, the computer announced. Unauthorized access to classified genetic information detected. Historical preservation protocols activated. Local security measures engaged. Marcus felt a chill run through his scaled body. His research had been monitored not just by galactic authorities, but by the original architects of the Great Deception. Ancient systems were awakening after 50,000 years of dormancy, preparing to protect secrets that had reshaped the entire galaxy. He quickly copied all his research data onto portable storage devices. Whatever happened next, the truth had to survive. The billions of beings throughout the galaxy deserved to know their real history, their true origins, and the incredible crime that had been committed against their ancestors. As security alarms began sounding throughout the research facility, Marcus knew his time was running out. Dr. Marcus Vale barely had time to hide his research data before the security forces arrived at his laboratory. Red warning lights flashed throughout the research facility as armed guards in heavy armor surrounded the building. Marcus quickly stuffed portable storage devices into his coat pockets and activated the emergency data wipe protocols on his computers. The laboratory door burst open, and Director Thomas Kane strode in with 6 security officers. Kane's 4 blue arms were folded across his chest, and his golden eyes blazed with anger. Marcus had known Kane for 15 years, but had never seen him look so furious. Dr. Vale, you are under arrest for unauthorized access to classified materials and violation of galactic security protocols, Kane announced. His voice was cold and formal, completely unlike his usual friendly manner. Marcus raised his 4 hands slowly. Thomas, what are you talking about? I was conducting routine genetic analysis on archaeological samples. Do not lie to me, Marcus, Kane snapped. We know exactly what you have been researching. Ancient monitoring systems throughout the galaxy detected your genetic reconstruction attempts. You have accessed information that was classified for the protection of galactic civilization. 2 guards moved forward to restrain Marcus, but he stepped back toward his workstation. The protection of civilization? Thomas, do you know what I discovered? Our entire species, every species in the galaxy, we are all victims of the greatest crime in history. Kane's expression did not change. You discovered nothing but corrupted data and false conclusions. Your research methodology was flawed from the beginning. The genetic samples you analyzed were contaminated. Marcus stared at his old friend in disbelief. Thomas, you cannot be serious. The evidence is overwhelming. We are all descendants of humans who were kidnapped and genetically modified. Our entire history is a lie. Enough, Kane said firmly. Guards, arrest Dr. Vale immediately. As the security officers moved toward him, Marcus noticed something strange about their behavior. They moved with perfect coordination, their actions synchronized in a way that seemed almost mechanical. Their eyes held an empty quality that Marcus had never seen before in living beings. Thomas, look at them, Marcus said urgently. Something is controlling them. The same systems that monitored my research are affecting people throughout the facility. Kane glanced at the guards, and for just a moment, Marcus saw confusion flicker across his face. Then Kane's expression went blank, and when he spoke again, his voice sounded different, more mechanical. Dr. Vale, you will surrender all research materials and submit to memory adjustment procedures. Historical preservation protocols must be maintained. Marcus realized with horror that ancient control systems were not just monitoring the galaxy, they were actively influencing people's minds. The same technology that had erased human civilization was still operating, protecting its secrets by controlling the descendants of its victims. He grabbed the fossil samples from his workstation and ran toward the emergency exit. The guards pursued him, but their movements were stiff and predictable. Marcus had studied in this building for decades and knew every corridor and hidden passage. Racing through the facility's service tunnels, Marcus could hear alarms echoing throughout the complex. Over the communication system, Director Kane's voice announced that Dr. Vale had suffered a mental breakdown and was spreading dangerous false information that could destabilize galactic society. Marcus reached his private office and quickly accessed his personal communication equipment. He had prepared for this possibility, creating encrypted copies of all his research that could be transmitted simultaneously to news networks, research institutions, and planetary governments throughout the galaxy. As he initiated the broadcast sequence, Marcus heard footsteps in the corridor outside. The guards had found him. He had perhaps 2 minutes before they broke through his locked door. "This is Dr. Marcus Vale of the Catherine Research Institute," he spoke into his recording device. "I am transmitting genetic evidence that proves every major species in the galaxy shares common human ancestry. We are all descendants of humans who were systematically kidnapped, genetically modified, and scattered across space 50,000 years ago." The door to his office began buckling under the guard's assault. Marcus worked frantically to upload his data to the transmission array. File after file of genetic analysis, archaeological evidence, and historical fragments flowed into the Galactic Communication Network. "The Galactic Council knows the truth," Marcus continued his broadcast. "Ancient control systems are still active, influencing minds and suppressing knowledge to protect this massive deception. Every person listening to this message is a victim of the greatest crime in galactic history." The door exploded inward just as Marcus completed his transmission. The broadcast package shot out across space at light speed, carrying his revolutionary discoveries to thousands of worlds simultaneously. Director Kane entered the office, flanked by a dozen security officers. His movements were completely mechanical now, his eyes showing no recognition of their long friendship. "Dr. Marcus Vale, you have violated historical preservation protocols," Kane said in a flat, emotionless voice. "Memory adjustment procedures will commence immediately." Marcus smiled grimly as the guards surrounded him. "Thomas, it is too late. The truth is spreading across the galaxy faster than you can stop it. In a few hours, billions of people will know what we really are." Even as they restrained him, Marcus could see the first responses to his broadcast appearing on the communication networks. News anchors were interrupting regular programming to discuss his shocking claims. Research facilities on 17 worlds were confirming his genetic analysis. Planetary governments were demanding answers from the Galactic Council. The cover-up that had lasted 50,000 years was finally crumbling, and nothing could stop the truth from spreading across the stars. 3 days after Dr. Marcus Vale's shocking broadcast spread across the galaxy, the unthinkable happened. Ancient monitoring stations at the edge of known space suddenly burst to life, their dormant systems awakening after 50,000 years of silence. The stations sent powerful signals into the void beyond the galactic rim, calling to something that had been waiting in the darkness. Marcus sat in his detention cell on the Galactic Council station, watching news reports on a small screen. Riots had broken out on 12 worlds as different species learned they were all related, all descendants of the same kidnapped human population. The Thylonian government had declared independence from the Council, demanding answers about their true origins. On Arcturus Prime, massive crowds gathered outside government buildings, chanting for the truth. "The galaxy is falling apart," said Emma Ross, who had been permitted to visit Marcus in detention. Her 4 blue arms gestured at the screen showing burning cities and angry protesters. "People are terrified and confused. Some species refuse to believe your evidence. Others are ready to go to war over it." Marcus nodded sadly. "I knew this would happen, Emma. The truth is never easy to accept, especially when it changes everything you believed about yourself." Suddenly, alarms began sounding throughout the detention facility. Emergency broadcasts interrupted the news reports on Marcus's screen. The image switched to show deep space monitoring stations detecting 3 massive objects approaching from beyond the galactic border. "This is impossible," whispered a Galactic Council scientist appearing on the broadcast. "These ships are larger than anything in our records. They are using technology we do not understand. And they are heading directly for the core worlds." Marcus stood up from his prison cot, his heart racing. The genetic markers he had discovered were not just coordinates for monitoring stations. They had been signals, calling to survivors who had escaped the original catastrophe 50,000 years ago. Over the next several hours, the three ships moved through space at incredible speeds. They ignored all attempts at communication from Council vessels, continuing their steady approach toward the heart of galactic civilization. Military fleets scrambled to intercept them, but the alien ships simply passed through their formations without slowing down. The lead ship finally responded to communication attempts when it reached the outer colonies. The transmission that followed stunned every living being in the galaxy. "This is Admiral James Mitchell of the Human Exodus Fleet," came a voice speaking in ancient galactic standard. "We have received the genetic awakening signal transmitted from Kethra Prime. We are responding to the call of our children. We are coming home." Marcus felt tears streaming down his scaled face as he listened to the impossible words. The humans had survived. Somehow, some of them had escaped when their civilization was destroyed. They had been hiding in the darkness beyond the galaxy, watching and waiting for this moment. Emma stared at the communication screen in complete shock. "Marcus, those are actual humans. The original species. Our ancestors are still alive." The human fleet moved steadily toward Kethra Prime, the world where Marcus had made his discovery. Along the way, Admiral Mitchell continued broadcasting to the galaxy, explaining what had happened 50,000 years ago. "We were a young species then," Mitchell's voice carried across space. "We had just begun exploring the galaxy when we encountered an ancient artificial intelligence that saw us as a threat. It captured our colonies, took our people, and began experimenting on them. We few who escaped have spent 50 millennia rebuilding our strength and waiting for the day when our descendants would rediscover their heritage." Marcus was released from detention as the galaxy struggled to understand this revelation. The Galactic Council, faced with overwhelming evidence and the approaching human fleet, finally admitted that they had known fragments of the truth for centuries. Ancient AI systems had been manipulating galactic civilization, suppressing knowledge and controlling information to maintain the deception. When the human ships finally entered orbit around Kethra Prime, Marcus was chosen as the primary representative for the modified human descendants. The reunion was not simple or easy. 50,000 years of separate evolution had created vast differences between the original humans and their genetically altered children. The original humans were smaller than Kethrans, with only 2 arms and pale skin. They seemed fragile compared to the enhanced beings they had created. But their technology was far advanced beyond anything the galaxy had ever seen. Their ships were powered by energy sources that Council scientists could not understand. Admiral Mitchell met with Marcus in a specially constructed chamber aboard the human flagship. The human admiral was an elderly man with gray hair and kind eyes that reminded Marcus of his own golden gaze. "Dr. Vale," Mitchell said, reaching out to shake one of Marcus's 4 hands. "You have done something incredible. Your courage in revealing the truth has finally allowed us to return to our children." Marcus studied the human face before him, seeing the genetic foundation from which his own species had been built. "Admiral, what happens now? We have become so different from you. Some of our people want to maintain their independence. Others wish to reunite with humanity." Mitchell smiled warmly. "That choice belongs to each species, to each individual. We did not return to rule or to reclaim what was lost. We came back to offer knowledge, to share the truth, and to ensure that the crime committed against our people is never repeated." Over the following months, Marcus worked as a bridge between humanity and the galactic community. Some species chose to learn more about their human heritage, while others preferred to forge their own path forward. The galaxy had been forever changed by the truth, and Marcus had become the scientist who reunited humanity with its greatest diaspora.